in case you didn't come up or you haven't seen these posters, maybe come and have a look later. But, oh, there we go. Disability is a spectrum, right? So even under visual, sure, you might be able to justify saying, oh, we have no blind users. Great. But you definitely have users who have some kind of eye, something, right? So here's a couple that we've got as examples, like being outside on a sunny day with a shiny screen. Has anyone ever been outside with their phone?
Yeah.
Okay, right, and it looks like this, right? You know, what is going on here? Being colorblind, color vision deficiency. Having low vision or poor eyesight, perhaps from old age. Not me.
Young age.
Or being blind. So there's a spectrum, right? It's not just eyes on, eyes off. There's a whole bunch of stuff.
And these things can be permanent things, or they can be temporary, or they can be contextual. And so when we add a barrier to access in our product design, depending on where someone starts out, that barrier will be more or less severe, basically, for our users. So I'm not colorblind, so low color contrast is actually fine for me. It might just be a bit irritating. It might make something harder to read. But for someone who is colorblind, it might mean they literally just can't read something. Hence, spectrum. Okay.
So we keep talking about these barriers, right? So you can throw up a barrier, I mean not throw up a barrier, that'd be weird. But there might be a barrier created by the product, created by the thing that we're making, right? So just some examples of something like cognitive. If all of the text on your site, app or whatever is really complex and all the sentences are really long, that could be might be a problem. It might throw up a barrier for someone with some kind of cognitive disability, right? If you've got lots of little widgets on your site with like tiny buttons, or you can only use a mouse to interact with something, you can't use a keyboard to interact with something, that might be a problem with some kind of, for someone with a physical disability. And what's the visual one? Color contrast, which we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So if your color contrast is for shit, then your site's for shit. That's a bit hard.
Okay, so you might have heard of a guy called Tim Berners-Lee. According to this image, he is a web developer. We like to call him the web developer. And Tim says that the power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect. And just as an aside, when Tim pitched his idea for the World Wide Web to his boss, it was going to be an information management system, and his boss's his comment was, vague but exciting.
It's not wrong.
True. Okay, so accessibility or access is an essential aspect.
Essential.
Of the internet.
Essential. And there are other spectrums we could consider too, right? We picked a few, but there are a lot more. So like, anyone have any ideas just off the top of your head? Like what other thing might, as a human interacting with a website or app, what are the other things?
Hearing?
Hearing, yeah.
Yeah.
Running out of data? Yeah, data, the network. Connecting to a network to do stuff. Data is expensive. Maybe you don't have any. Maybe you can't afford to buy more.
If anyone tried the activity that we had here with the two laptops, no offense, Matt, but using a very old laptop, it can make things slow. But thanks. Think Pat over or something. And there might also be environmental ones, like sunshine or a lot of noise, or just, shitty music from the gym. I'm sure it's great if you're
Or the device, right? So maybe you've got the latest, snazziest iPhone, maybe you've got an oldest, crappiest Android. There's a huge range in between those two things. That's even just on smartphones. Not even considering all the other stuff. iPhone 13.
No,
Is it doing it again?
No.
Okay. No. Safe.
When your audience starts laughing and you don't know why.
Sure, it's fine.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about what inclusive design actually is.
And the way. But not at the same time. It's weird.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So inclusive design is about designing for the diversity of our users, right? And as we're kind of pointing out a bit here, it's often things that we haven't thought of. We have disabled users using this definition, right? We have people with differing abilities that maybe we're excluding, we're throwing a barrier in their face when they're just trying to do a thing with our thing to get a thing done. I've said things too much now. Please help me.
And so lots of people's disabilities are invisible. They won't actually show up in your analytics or your funnels or Redshift or whatever else it might be. What? Yeah. So inclusive design is closely related to accessibility, obviously. I hope obviously. And accessibility is specifically about designing for people with disabilities, but if we design in accessible ways, as I think we pointed out, it kind of benefits everyone. And there's a lot of great documentation available online about how we can make our stuff more accessible. 2 guidelines that you should definitely Google are WCAG and YARA.
It needs to be more piratey.
No.
YARA.
Check those out, especially if you haven't heard of them. If you had heard of them, go and have a read again. Anyway, it's a really great place to start. And inclusive design is also about good usability. So we want to get out of the way of our users and let them do what they came to do. What's happening? Oh God.
You are, I can see you. Okay.
And it's that kind of amazing paradox of good UX design. It's like, as a UX designer, if I've done my job really well, no one will notice. Yeah.
And playing to the crowd, inclusive design is about quality software, right? So not just about is it like structurally and functionally sound, or we're about to get cut off. Are we already on the time? I mean, awkward. I like to think of it in terms of is it ship shape? Is it working as it's supposed to? Does it hold together? Is it leaking? Okay, that last one doesn't really work for software, but you get the idea. Is it all holding together well? Well.
So hopefully that gives you an idea of what it is, but why should we care? Why even do this? What's in it for us, and what's in it for our pointy-head bosses? I feel like we have some pointy-head bosses in the room tonight. So inclusive design helps us be a superhero to our users. In the best case scenario, we can take something that's unusable and make it usable for someone. And in the worst case scenario, we take our stuff and make it just a little bit better, just a little bit easier to use. So either way, it's a win-win scenario. You have nothing to lose.
A double win.
Yes.
Like no lose, all win.
All win.
That's pretty good.
And it's also the ethical thing to be blunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like that was a bit kind of judgy. The producer judging me.
No, I wasn't judging.
Oh, okay, that's good. Also, as I'm sure a number of you are aware, fixing things later is way more expensive than fixing things earlier. And while we're talking about expensive, you might get your asses sued for having an inaccessible website. Locally, not quite so much yet, but in the US and the UK, especially big kind of government-y things, it's like, ooh, you're going to be in trouble if you have an inaccessible website. Like money trouble, like I have trouble. Like, ooh, I'm good, trouble.
So inclusive design helps us get more humans on more devices under more conditions. And if capitalism is your thing, that means more customers who pay you more, which is great. And if capitalism is not your thing, it just means better experiences all around.
Nice. Boom. 2 down, 1 to go. You tired?
Exhausted.
Yeah, cool. We can't hear music, that's why we're not being...
Yeah, no, it's true.
Okay, so that was lots of stuff. Is there anything particularly surprising come up for anyone yet? This is the bit where you can use your mouse to talk to us. We can try and use other parts, but probably no. Does anything really stand out? Anything that hit you? Like, what the heck was that? Or is it like, oh yeah, I know this stuff, whatever? Is it what else crowd? Designing for evil. Is this an admission? Is this true confession?
Wow, the wiki picture.
So some newspapers have paywalls where they grey out the screen.
Oh yes.
What stops me from just going to div and just changing the opacity from 1 to 0?
Okay, so
I feel included that I don't have to pay them to do this stuff.
Why have I never thought of trying that before?
This is life changing. I think let's come back to that one because I think it's kind of veering slightly off topic. But it's don't be evil is that's not using.
Don't knowingly design dark patterns, but that's dark UX patterns is like a whole talk. Honest, we'll be back. We'll be back with that
next week.
Okay, so just quickly to get a sense of who's in the room, can I get a show of hands? How many testing people do we have here? Everybody. Okay, and Debs? Any designers? Any UX people?
I'm not sure what I am, but I have a hand.
Any pointy head bosses? Just the one. Cool.
It's only slightly.
Yeah, 1 second. Okay, so the point is, when it comes to actually testing our stuff, that doing inclusive design is a team sport. Everyone in the product development life cycle needs to kind of own their piece, and everyone can contribute in the different stages of product development. So we're going to give you 3 examples of pretty easy things that you can test quickly, and we're going to tie them back to
Maybe like a flashback one.
the stuff we've spoken about. Okay, so people with physical impairments and power users who are too cool for a mouse use a keyboard instead of a mouse because it doesn't require precise motor control. And I know one or two people tried one of the trembling things on the laptop here, and it was like all over the show.
Exactly like that.
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly the sound effect. My singing voice. So what you can do is try navigating through the menu of your site or the elements in your form, just using the tab key on your keyboard, and see if your ordered list is in fact ordered. Can you actually move the cursor and the focus in a form, in a flow that makes sense to a user, or is it kind of jumping all over the show?
Search is a great one. Often,
Yes.
everything is great except the search form only works when you click in the box. The keyboard, it
Yeah.
just jumps right over it.
And there's actually no way of getting there without a mouse, which is not great.
It's me. Oh, it's me. And as we talked about, color contrast is a big thing for anyone with a visual disability. But also, apart from contrast, there's also representing information only in color. So what you do is change the color of a thing to indicate a state change. If someone's colorblind, they might not see that change. So you have to change other things too, thicknesses of borders, bold texts of regular white text, or anything else, but not just color. More than color.
Changing words is
Wow.
good too.
That's amazing. And we talked about this on the cognitive one, right? Plain language. So in some countries in the world, like South Africa, your website might be in English, but the person coming to your site, their home language is probably not English. So if you're using all of these giant words that you learned in your fancy school, and it's like, it might be kind of like, what does this word even mean? I'm going to have to Google this. I have to Google language. What's language? I don't know. What does it mean?
Just out of interest, quick show of hands, how many people here speak more than 3 languages? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we're going to share a link with you. No, not word language. We're going to share a link with you at the end that gives you cool, nice tools to help you test these things. So yeah, it sounds like a lot of work, and it kind of is.
But Leonie Watson is a accessibility engineer. She is web platform co-chair at the W3C for some cool stuff. She speaks at conferences all over the world. And by the way, she happens to be completely blind. And she says it doesn't have to be perfect, just a little bit better than yesterday, right? Small changes are great. Small changes are easier to make. Small changes are easier to sell to the bosses, and they add up over time. If you make one small change every week, suddenly in 2 or 3 months' time, you've done a whole bunch of stuff. High five yourself.
You injured yourself the last time you tried that. Yeah, and so because disability is a spectrum, as we've said, even small iterative improvements will improve your stuff for people. And so it's okay to take many small steps in the right direction. You don't have to overhaul your whole thing and, burn the server room and, yeah.
I mean, you could, but it
that would be great if you really need to, but, you also don't have to. Okay, so what next?
Now what? What is it?
Yeah.
I said my name. Okay, right. So next week, Thursday, the 17th of May, I really hope we got the right date, is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Happens every year. And if you Google this, you'll find their international website with a bunch of activities to do on this day. They've got a couple and they say we'll do it for an hour or something. We've kind of found that an hour can be hard to kind of pitch, right? So you say just 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes doing this one thing because it's Global Accessibility Day. Yay, it's going to be amazing. Yeah. Oh, and that one, yes. And this other meetup group that I'm involved with, Cape Town front-end developers, this Saturday morning, we're doing a workshop doing very similar things to this and very similar to this presentation. And actually, we're running it, right? I mean,
I believe so.
yeah, I also believe so, which is good.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're keen to get a bit more hands-on and spend, I think it's 10 to 1 o'clock, so it's like full-on, proper, like, fix your stuff. It's going to be awesome. And I think it's the 3rd or 4th year that we're doing it, so we still have no idea what we're doing. We'll try it. So.
Okay, so now what? Number 2. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., spend 10 minutes testing your stuff. That's all. Pick one thing that you can tweak and make it better. And again, we'll share the link where you can use some tools to test your stuff.
And that link has the activities, so there are 3 activities to pick from.
So pick one. If you drew on the posters, think about something that's relevant to that, or someone that you drew a heart for. Choose an activity that's close to them tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Yes. Hashtag what? Just hashtag?
Hashtag.
Hashtag. Okay, I like it.
Inclusive.
For what? Google it. Okay, all right. Okay, next time, prepare. So we'd like you to spend just one quick minute now. Turn to somebody sitting next to you and say to them, I want to spend 10 minutes tomorrow testing my stuff, using that weird 10 and 10 thing from yesterday. And then give them a celebratory hand gesture of your choosing, a thumbie or a slight sting high five. You didn't say the words.
I'm going to spend 10 minutes.
I'm going to spend 10 minutes with Matt.
Is this a bit silly? Yes. Will it help you tomorrow morning? Is that weird thing? Yes, please.
I'm going to spend 10 minutes.
Somebody sitting next to you.
And that's us. Thank you.
So much better than JavaScript. JavaScript.
Question time. But there's one question, maybe, in the main side. Guys, it's question time. So, if you have any questions, I have a mic. You can speak into it, and they can hear it. What? Yes, please talk one of those things.
Do you have a question on 18?
Have you guys thought of doing tracking stand-up comedy?
What's that question over there, Nicola?
Have you guys thought of doing tag team stand-up comedy on a new line? You're off. Thanks, I'll take it. To answer the question, honestly, yes, probably. Yes.
Okay, question 2 comes from you.
Thank you. Nicola and Steve, the good stuff you're talking about. So most business kind of don't care if you use the keyboard or the mouse, if it works, they like it. But now I'm starting to feel like it's more like you as a developer, as a team, you're gonna put extra time for it. But then are you gonna put it under tech debt, or are you gonna do it in your spare time? Who writes the requirements for inclusive design?
Well, like lots of things, it depends, right? So remember the Leonie Watson slide? You don't have to spend 3 days doing a thing. You know, you've got a ticket, you're working, you know, it's a half a day thing. Squeeze in 15 minutes of checking one bit. You don't have to make the whole site, the whole app accessible with a keyboard. Just pick this one bit and fix that. Check that bit. That's good enough for today. Tomorrow, squeeze in another 5 minutes. But the thing about they don't really care if it works, you know, they're not going to care about the keyboard thing. This is where this kind of the spectrum thing comes in. It's like, yeah, maybe you don't care, but maybe there are people it's important to, we just don't know about them. We don't see them in the stats, sure, but they're there. They're everywhere.
So, follow-up question kind of to that. I'm a game designer, hence my non-committal UX. It's amazing a lot of the parallels that you see in terms of this and game design as well. And I think there's a point that you made early on that maybe didn't sink in. It was like, even just being aware of this makes a big difference. Because, yeah, some of these changes are quite expensive, but a lot of them are almost free if you're aware of the decision going into it. Like, writing simple language is not necessarily more difficult than more wordy language. And there's a couple of other changes that when you're in the moment, making them are basically for free. And yeah, the benefit that you get is just across the board. So I've seen exactly the same in games as well.
Nice.
Awesome. Thanks.
We've got time for 2 more questions, and we have 2 hands, so we're going to go with the front guy first, because he stands closer.
Thank you, I really like this whole BEE thing, thanks. So do you have any tools for website accessibility checking? Like, I'm sure that there must be some council that does like ratings of how accessible your website is, and it would be cool to actually have some sort of rating where you can go and check. It's something you can check it on and get some sort of rating and then benchmark this website versus this website. What's better?
Like the council development, like the ring and stuff. Something like that. There are a whole bunch. We'll post some links in the meetup. But I think you do get a few that do like a score, or what they mostly do is check for inaccessible things. Like they'll spin through your site and say, oh, you've got an image there without any alt text. So if the connection times out or the image doesn't display for some reason, it's just blank. It's like, well, that's shit, isn't it? Or checks the color contrast, and they'll say, oh, this color, hash 666 should, should actually be 999 or 911 or 90210, and then it's the right amount of contrast. So the tools will kind of flag things for you, which you can then go and look at. I've seen a lot more of that kind of thing and of the kind of score. You?
I agree.
Cool, can I ask a question now? Okay. First one I'll answer Connell. So Chrome DevTools has an audit feature, and you can click on it and do an audit, and it will tell you if there's any contrast issues or accessibility issues on your site. And it gives you actually a score out of 100.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Chrome DevTools. What's that? Yeah, okay, so my actual question, so you mentioned stuff like looking outside, there's glare on the screen, or if you're in a moving train, how would you address those issues with a website? I'm scared. So you can fix color blindness by making a contrast better. How would you improve your website to make it more accessible when looking outside with glare on your screen or something like that?
So even, there's limits, obviously, like if the sun is straight above and the screen is really clean. But if you're fixing anywhere on the spectrum, it's going to make it better in other places. So increasing contrast or making text sizes a bit larger will make stuff easier to read on a shiny screen. So I think it kind of feeds back like all which ways. I also just thought it could be really great to do usability tests on a train. A Swiss train.
But not on a Golden Arrow bus, apparently.
Okay, cool. We're going to move on because we are only like 20 minutes over time. Not you, me. Thanks, Steve and Nicola. Thanks so much, guys. Give them a round of applause. Okay, while they pack up, we're going to go straight into the lightning talks. So stay where you are, or come forward actually, if you want to hear about the lightning talks. If you want.